two, one.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's show. We're talking about a blind tale with Cary Tedder. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, can you tell us a little about your growing up and your background and
Sure. Yeah. I grew up just outside Atlanta, in Georgia, and I decided I wanted to attend the performing arts high school that was nearby, and so I auditioned and I booked it, and then I started training just right out of the gate, and I immediately studied dance and music and acting, and I found that I loved it and I wanted to do it for a living, and so I auditioned for colleges, a number of different colleges, and then I ended up at the University of Michigan, where I graduated in 2009 with a BFA in musical theater. Go Blue. And then started working on Broadway. You know, come to New York and hit the auditions and start seeing what's out there for us. You
Was
know.
it hard for you to get started?
Yeah, I mean it's always difficult. This is a strange community because everyone is very supportive, but there are only so many positions, and there are only so many theaters, so only so many people can have a chance to be on Broadway at any given time. And two, what they don't tell you is that sometimes you can work really hard and for a long time to get to a Broadway show, and then that show may only run for 3 weeks. You know? My first Broadway show only ran for 3 weeks. It was called The Times They Are A-Changin',
Yeah.
back in 2006.
Speaking of
Yeah.
that, thinking of since you brought it up, what is it like making your Broadway debut?
Oh man.
I'm of changing.
I was young. I was 19 at the time, and it was a whirlwind. I mean, it's unlike anything you've ever done, that's for sure. It's a surprise, it's frightening, because New York is the top of the line, you know. When people go to Paris, they don't say see a Broadway show. You can only say that when you go to New York, you know. So there's only one place in the world where you can say go see a Broadway show. But you'd be amazed because the amount of love that pours out of people when they know you're making your Broadway debut. The people that you work with in the theater, your family, your friends, acquaintances, people you've known from other shows, you get showered in love. And I think that's mostly why we do this, is because we know that love is a living thing, and we all support each other that way. It's also kind of like, it happens really fast, you know, because you want to hang on to the moment, but it just kind of goes shoom, and then the next thing you know, it's the next day, and you go, oh, well now I'm a Broadway performer, you know. But it was beautiful, you know. We had a good time.
Yeah, then you moved to a show that I also like. Joe the Eight Rose Memphis.
Yes, Memphis.
And you worked with my second best friend, James.
James Eichelhart, yes! Oh, I love James Monroe Eichelhart. Yeah, we had a blast on Memphis. That was one of the best years of my life, Memphis.
Yeah.
Was he in it when
Yeah, so James and me are so close.
Yeah?
And I also know Joe the Pico.
Yeah, Joe's great. Love
Yeah.
Joe.
We were supposed to work on a project.
Oh, really? What is he working on now? I just heard that he was working on something.
He's working on an Secret project.
Oh, yeah?
Nice try.
Well, have you seen James in Hamilton?
I have.
Yeah? Was he fantastic?
Yeah.
Of course he was.
Yeah.
He's fantastic in everything he does.
And
and
the,
Aladdin?
Oh, yeah, and Aladdin.
yeah, and these
Nine
stories that you could tell us
Oh, what about James?
James.
Well, here's a funny story. So after I left Memphis, okay, I left and I went, every time I finish a show or something like that, I try and make a little time to go home and see my parents, right, in Atlanta, because we're so far away and I wish I could see them more. But so I went home and it was late night, my parents were asleep, and I was watching TV, and a commercial came on for Chips Ahoy cookies, and it was James's voice. And so I called him, and I said, James, you gotta call me back. This is urgent. And he calls me and he says, what's up, man? What's going on? Something wrong? I said, no, I just heard your voice on the Chips Ahoy commercial, man. I said, congratulations. But it was great. It's always great when you can see someone you know a year later or 2 years later at the Tonys or on the Macy's Day Parade or on TV doing whatever it is they love to do. And when I saw James perform in Aladdin on the Tonys,
Oh, yeah.
my heart was so full, you know?
Yeah.
He's just the best. And he's the
Yeah.
nicest guy.
I realize him
Yeah.
so often
Yeah?
that they have a ramp for me
Oh, that's great.
to get backstage.
And I have a couple of friends who are now in Aladdin. You know, it's a great show. It's
Yeah.
a lot of fun. And hey, Alan Menken, right?
Yeah.
Gotta love that Alan Menken.
Alan Menken.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. So, were you in you might know Brian Finkart?
Yeah, Brian Finkart.
Yeah.
He and I sat very close to one another in the dressing room, but we lived down the street from one another in Queens.
His dad used to be my doctor.
Oh, yeah? No
Yeah.
way. What's his name?
That,
Yeah, that's a Dr. Finkart.
I am just
From in my car.
Michael.
Yeah, Brian's a great guy.
Now you moved from Memphis
Mm-hmm.
to Big Fish,
Yep.
and you understudied
Yes.
two roles.
Yes.
I think you were the understudy for Leo Norman, Leo Butt.
No, I didn't understudy Norbert, but I understudied Bobby. Bobby Steggert?
Yeah.
Yeah, Will Bloom.
How was you have to understudy two people?
Oh, yeah.
How do you keep it straight in
It's-
your brain?
It's tough. Well, okay, so I told you I played 6 parts in Bronx Tale.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
played 15 parts in Big Fish.
But you had to understudy
Yeah,
two.
I had to understudy. I understudied
Who was
Alex Brightman, and I understudied Bobby Steggert. And it is tough to keep it straight, especially when they want you to do all kinds of crazy things, like in Big Fish, where they had us doing things like I had to do puppetry, and we had to do sort of like circus stuff, like juggling. I had to learn how to juggle, and I had to learn how to do a unicycle. So there were all kinds of crazy things that when we would go to rehearsal, it wasn't just people singing and dancing. It was people throwing juggling pins and on stilts, and people doing all kinds of wild stuff, and being mermaid tails, and so it is tough to keep it all straight. But it's kind of like computer files, I guess, right?
Yeah.
If you click on YouTube, it's not going to take you to Google, you know, or it's not going to take you to your iTunes. It's going
Yeah.
to take you right to YouTube, and then you can navigate within that channel. That's kind of how it is for me, at least. I sort of had my Bobby channel. So if I knew I was doing Bobby's track, I was only ever really concerned about his lines, his songs, his dancing, his costumes. The same goes for Alex. But it is definitely a hefty load. And you know about swings, right?
Yeah.
Because some swings out there have a dozen tracks
Yeah,
to learn.
yeah.
And I don't know how they do that. It's
Yeah.
hard enough doing it with 2 tracks, you know.
Yeah.
But when I was a swing, I only understudied 4. I only covered 4 people. So that's pretty simple when it comes to a swing track. But in terms of Big Fish, it actually wasn't that hard. I did every performance possible of Big Fish. I didn't miss a single show. I had perfect attendance. But it was great. It was such a my heart loved doing that show.
Who did you go on for more, Alex or Bobby?
I think I only ever really went on for Alex like a handful of times, but I only ever went on for Bobby once. So it was kind of crazy because that was the night before Thanksgiving, and Bobby got sick, and so I just had to jump on at a moment's notice and do it. So I didn't even have time to think about it. You just have to go out there and do it.
How
And-
did you do that before? What did they give you?
Yeah, I mean they
Half
helped me.
hour?
Yeah, they helped me. I actually had
They
to.
give you a half
Yeah, they gave me a
hour?
little bit of time because we had 2 shows that day.
Yeah.
And Bobby knew he was feeling sick during the matinee. And so I, during the first show, watched everything that he did. And then on dinner break, I took all my notes and I walked through the stage and they let me use the set pieces and the props and everything. So that by the time the evening show happened, I was very well prepared. That's what they say it's all about, being prepared. You have to be prepared. And you'd be surprised how many times people on Broadway are just thrown onto the stage, you know. But that's what makes it magic, you know. That's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, so then you went to James Lee.
Well, not yet. I went through Honeymoon in Vegas first.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, it was a goofy show.
Yeah, you did Honeymoon in Vegas with Rob McClure.
With Rob McClure.
And the legendary Tony Danza.
Tony Danza, baby. Yeah. Both of those guys.
And Bryn O'Malley.
Yes, love Bryn O'Malley. Who's now a mom.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Bryn.
Yeah.
Go blue. Huh?
I think he's married to Bobby Moore.
Yes, to Bobby Moynihan. Yeah.
Yeah, from SNL.
Yeah.
Can you talk about your experience in that?
Yeah. Well, you know, working with Rob is not.
I kinda know Rob.
Oh yeah,
too.
Rob is great. But I'll tell you this, Rob McClure. I hope you're listening to this, Rob. You're not easy to understudy. He's very good. And Rob is so good that it makes it very difficult to understudy him because I'll never be Rob McClure. Rob was, I will say, Rob was one of the genuinely nicest guys I've ever known. He invited my, at the time, girlfriend, but now my wife, down to his place in Philadelphia to hang out with him for a weekend and his wife Maggie. And we had a great time, and he showed me around Philadelphia and some parts that I'd never seen. And he was a true, you know how they say you have ensemble in a show and then you have leads?
Yeah.
Well, the reason they call them leads is because they need to be able to lead.
Yeah.
It's not just that you have the most lines or you have the biggest role, it's that you need to be able to lead the group in making the play. And Rob is tremendous at that. Rob is so inclusive, and he's very gentle, and he's very kind. And he's lighthearted, but he takes his work very seriously. Tony was very much the same way. Tony was a fascinating guy to work for because you could tell how much he loved doing what he did. His heart was on that stage every single show. And there were three people that warmed up before every show. And it was me, Rob McClure, and Tony Danza. There was a day that there was no one in the theater. There was no one on stage. We were before the show, and there were only two people on stage, me and Tony Danza. And we were both doing splits with our legs. Like, and I looked over and I said, "How old are you, Tony?" I think he said something like 63 or something, and he's still doing his splits. He was an amazing guy. Incredible shape, yeah, and you could tell that he loved to do what he was doing. That was a fun.
I kinda know Rob.
Yeah.
But not as well as I know James.
Sure.
I can call James up and say, "Hey, you wanna hang out?" And he's like, "Yeah."
Yeah. Oh, James is great. Yeah, and Rob too. I mean, Rob has a tradition. I don't know if you know this, or I should say a ritual, where before every performance he touches every chair in the theater. Have you ever seen this?
I seen that.
So he runs back and forth between all the aisles. Yeah, and when he's
in... Do you ever watch his blog?
No, I've never seen his blog.
On Broadway.com.
Yeah, is it so good?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's good. It's Rob McClure. Come on. But he would do it at the Muni. Yeah, I mean, in St. Louis, where there's 10,000 chairs.
Oh, come on.
So he would run for half an hour before the show would even start. But he says that the good thing is, it's sort of like, I guess, a bit of a blessing. I'm not sure if he's getting the blessing or giving the blessing, but he says that it helps him warm up, so that by the time he's touched every chair in the theater, his body's warm, his voice is warm, he's ready to go. And that show was so perfect for Rob. He fit it so perfectly. I still sing "I Love Betsy." The opening song from that show. It's in my book. because it's a great song, and I got to play Elvis. Come on.
Oh.
That was fun, you know? Wearing the bell bottoms and the big and the sunglasses, you know.
We were in Memphis this summer. We went down there.
Oh, nice.
The Graceland.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then when that closed, you went to Dames.
It was on to Dames at Sea.
Yeah, with good old Leslie.
Yeah, Leslie Margarita.
Yeah, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the smallest show on Broadway.
Yeah, it was like you and 4 other people.
Yeah, it was a very small cast, and
It
that
was-
was actually one of the smallest shows I've ever been
It
in.
was like you, Leslie, and 2 other people.
Yeah, it was itty bitty. And we were at the Helen Hayes Theater, which is a tiny little theater.
Yeah,
But, you know, we were in the same season as Hamilton, so we kind of got overshadowed. But we had a great time. Working with Randy Skinner is like nothing else. That style, that old school musical theater style,
Yeah.
is usually mimicked when people try to do the 20s, 30s, 40s. They're sort of reflecting on that age, but Randy really does know that time period. So when he would choreograph things, he was very determined in what he wanted, but he was very open to suggestions or interpretation. I never thought I would be a good enough tap dancer to be in a Randy Skinner show. When they asked me to audition, at first I said no. I said, there's no way. I will never get hired for this show. And my agent said, we really think you should try this. And I said, okay, fine. And I auditioned, and I ended up booking the part. And it ended up being a joy because I had one costume. Basically, I got to play a great, funny character. And I worked with some wonderful people. And the Helen Hayes is such a great theater.
Yeah.
And Dames at Sea is such a little jewel. It's not making fun of anybody, and it's not. It's goofy. You know, it's a goofy show.
Why do you think it took this long for
Dames to arrive?
at Broadway?
Well, I don't know.
Because there's many regional productions.
Right.
But why haven't there ever been a Dames on Broadway?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of people would come up to us after the show and say that. They would say, oh, we did Dames at Sea in my high school, or we did Dames at Sea in my community theater, we did Dames at Sea at our local civic center, and that's how a lot of people know the show. But it's such a small show. It's sort of like, what do they call it? I'm probably getting this wrong, but something like Broadway on a postage stamp.
Yeah.
That's what they wanted it to be, and it was originally written as a cafe show, a show that was performed on an itty bitty, a stage maybe the size of this table, in a little cafe somewhere, and so it never really had the dream of being as big as Broadway. That's kind of why I think it had a couple of lives off Broadway, but it never really was gonna play to a house of 1,500. And unfortunately, that's a style that is almost altogether lost. Which means that if you bring it in the age of the modern musical, it can feel like it sort of gets shuffled to the back. I am happy we did it, though. At the end of the day, I'm happy we did that thing. And it was short-lived, and it broke my heart, but I'll never be unhappy that it happened, you know? And it's really cool when your cast is only 6 little people, you know, dancing with umbrellas.
And Leslie.
Yeah, and Leslie. Yeah. Well, 6 little people and Leslie's very large personality. And John Bolton. Yeah, John Bolton is now in Anastasia.
Yeah. Now, you were, let's talk about your lovely work.
Oh, yeah?
Mary Michael.
Okay.
How is it balancing Mary's life with 2 big Broadway stars?
Yeah, it's
In
definitely
that-
challenging.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you know, Mary played Christine in Phantom of the Opera on Broadway
Yeah.
a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
and that is a huge undertaking. I mean,
Yeah.
that's no small part.
Yeah.
And it is, every now and then it can be challenging to be married. She's on tour right now in Love Never Dies, and she's playing Meg on that production. And it can be challenging to be apart because we both have jobs and we're both in shows, but her show right now is in Chicago. And so I can't see her very often, and that makes me a little sad because she has our dog, and the house is very quiet, and I'm alone a lot. But it is wonderful because then I can go and see her in whatever play she's in, and it just makes me, I mean, I still get so charmed. We've been together for about 10 years, and I know, the third of my life, and I still am so enchanted by her. Anything cool in my life has come from Mary Michael. Anything, music, books, clothes, it's all her.
Yeah.
So that's why I had to marry that girl quick before she found somebody else. But it's also cool because she and I are constantly working on things together. And she'll have an audition, and she'll come home with some sides or some script or something. And she wants to play the parts, and so in our living room we've been Curly and Laurie, and I mean just Mame and another of the number of other characters that we've gone through because she's been auditioning for this or I've been auditioning for that. She got so close to an episode of 30 Rock a couple of years ago, and I was so hoping she would get it. But she's wonderful, and she has the most glorious soprano voice. And when I hear her sing, it's still just, I love her so
Where
much.
did you meet?
We met at school.
Oh.
Yeah, we started dating when I was 20 years old.
Okay.
Now, let's get to a Bronx.
Let's get to a Bronx Tale, huh?
Now, you're working with legendary people
Oh, yeah.
like Jerry Zach, Robert De Niro,
Yup.
and good old Alan Menken.
Good old Alan Menken.
How is it working with legendary, people like that?
It's strange because at first you walk into the room and hear these people that you've heard their names and you know them and you know their work and you get a little scared, you know. But then after a couple of hours and a couple of days working with them, you realize there's people. I mean, Bob would show up. Robert De Niro would come into rehearsal. Yeah, right? Bob. Just Bob. And he would show up to rehearsal, and I wouldn't even know he walked in the door. He's so quiet. We'd be watching a scene or something, and then I'd look over, and there's Bob. When did you get here? And Jerry is, one thing that I loved watching Jerry do was he's so good at fine-tuning a piece, about going in and finding little places where there are opportunities for problems to arise, and he just takes the ends and he just goes clink, so it just everything fits together much tighter. And we had a number of different interactions, me and Bob, Jerry, and Chaz, and Alan Menken, and Sergio Trujillo, and you have a lot of really established professionals in the room, and everyone has great ideas, and everyone has something constructive to add to the piece. And then, of course, once the thing happens, they all step away, and we stand up and do it. And then they say, no, do it like this, or don't do it like that, or maybe try it this way. And it was very exciting. I'm in the ensemble, so I don't really have a whole lot in terms of direction. But there were a couple of things that they pointed me toward that I think helped me for sure, helped the other actors. And now we have a show that I think, to a great deal of Broadway's surprise, is still running. 14 musicals opened last season, and only 4 are left. And so now we're still going strong, and I think that speaks to the quality of the work that was done on the piece. The Longacre Theater is kind of a small house. We have a cast, I think, of 32, and usually the Longacre has plays with a cast of 8. So we have a lot of people in that theater, but I look out every night and the seats are full. And
Um,
so it's a blessing to have.
How did a blank mail thing from paper mill to Little Acre?
Oh, the journey from out of town or paper mill to the. Actually, I wasn't in the paper mill production. I remember as soon as Dames at Sea closed, I called my agents and said, "Get me in for Bronx Tale," and they said, "Too late. It's already going to paper mill." I said, "Okay, fine." And then later on, I ran into Sergio, the choreographer, and he said, "I think there may be a place for you in this show." And I said, "Let's make it happen." So I came in and auditioned for the Broadway production, and I was actually at the audition with one of the other doo-wop guys, Rory, and he and I both booked the show from that audition. And so I was I came in at the very last moment, right before Broadway, which is a blessing. I have never tried to do that, but it is sometimes ended up being that way. But it's definitely been like una familia, a family, a big collection of people who care about each other. Sometimes in theater and in entertainment, people can get against one another, but in our building, people who come in that are dressers, or people who come in that are actors, or people who come in that are interviewers, they often will mention to us, they say, the vibe here is really good, and everyone seems to be really nice. And I think that is something that we can hold our heads high about, is that not only do we have a good show, but we're working with good people. And I love that, every day.
Yeah. Can you tell that about your characters?
My characters. Well, let's see. Where do I start? Yeah, which one? I play, like I mentioned, I play 6 small characters in this show. They are doo-wop. We call ourselves the doo-wops. In the start of our show, you'll see it's kind of like Jersey Boys. The show starts with a street lamp and 4 guys under it singing doo-wop music. And it's a beautiful scene. It's really, really marvelously staged. But we call the 4 of us the doo-wops. So I play one of the doo-wops, and then I'm a gambler in the craps. We have actually, it's in this scene right here. Doink. In this scene, I am one of the sort of low-life gamblers that comes to Sonny's restaurant and goes down into the basement and throws dice. And they give me a mustache. And so all during that number, some days my mustache stays on, and some days my mustache starts to fly off my face, and I have to just deal with it. Who else do I play in the show? I play Louis Beans. Louis Beans. I put on an entire outfit just to run across the stage. I don't have any lines. All I do, you'll see me tonight, all I do is go, shoo! I play, so do you know who Richard Blake is? You know Richard Blake?
Yeah.
He plays Lorenzo. He plays the father of the lead in our show. And I play him at a younger age. So I play Lorenzo when he was 17 years old. And I have to go up on a balcony and play a saxophone because we learned that Lorenzo was a saxophone player.
Can you really play?
And then, well, I don't want to give anything away, but I play the killer at the end. I'm not a big fan of guns. I've never fired a gun, ever, except for in a Bronx Tale. And every night I have to shoot a gun, which is kind of crazy. But I have enjoyed it. I have tried to be very responsible with it. And obviously I take good care. But it's pretty cool because even my family didn't know that was me. When they saw the show, they said, "That was you?" I said, "You didn't know that? How did you not know that?"
Now, what year does this?
This takes place in a couple of years. It first starts in 1960, and then we sort of time travel to 1968. So there's this sort of 8-year span across the show.
Now, you're working with another buddy of mine.
Oh yeah, who's that?
Nick Cardero.
Nick Cordero. We love Nick Cordero.
Yeah. And I just love Nick. He's a nicest guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's very kind.
Yeah, he helped me celebrate my birthday.
Oh,
last
yeah?
year.
When's your birthday?
July 21st.
Oh, okay.
I have a picture of me with the whole cast of Waitress
Oh, that's great.
with the giant lobby pie.
Oh, yeah?
And I mean, it's giant. It's like it's the size of a large piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it smell like pie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so,
To him.
Oh, that's great.
it was so big.
Yeah.
It was so big that we ate it for a week.
For a week? That's great.
Any good stories about Nick?
Well, once again, I told Nick to his face, I said, you know, this is another opportunity where I've seen someone who works at the front of the cast and what it means to be a lead. I've seen leads out there who are only concerned with themselves, but I don't feel like that's Nick at all. Nick has always been very kind and very patient with me.
Yeah.
And he seems to care a great deal, not just about what he's doing in the show, but about the show at large. I don't think I have ever really seen Nick get angry. I don't think I have ever seen Nick lose his temper.
No.
Nick is always cool as a cucumber, and if he's upset about something, I don't know about it. He is in the dressing room right down the hall from us, and every now and then he'll make some joke or throw some comment out that is very funny. Nick is a funny guy.
Yeah, sometimes if gun doesn't go off.
Oh yeah, that happens from
And
time to time.
And I heard one other time, the Earth gun didn't go
Right.
off.
Yep.
And then the second gun didn't go.
He had the improv,
So
basically.
he had to he had to choke the guy to death.
He like broke his neck or something. He had to Vulcan neck pinch him, you know?
I just want to thank you for doing this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Are you gonna come out tonight of the stage door?
To,
Doesn't matter, the end of the show.
Autographs.
oh, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I'm sure you'll see Nick there too, right?
Yeah, I will.
You'll see us. We'll be like, I'll be here, and Nick will be somewhere.
Right,
somewhere here.
well, thank you again for doing
Yeah,
this.
absolutely. And we'll see you tonight.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a great time at the show.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye.
So long.
Just thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.